On today's show, we're going to look at the remaining targets available for the Ottawa Senators, including a top prospect who's unhappy but available for trade.
And there's still some veteran UFAs for the Sens to fill out the bottom of their lineup. We'll take a look at some of those targets.
All that plus a note from development camp on today's Locked On Sens.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's comedy, theater, sports, Game Time app, code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Terms apply. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter. The podcast is available wherever you get yours, including on YouTube, where a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Today is Friday, July 5th. Want to give a happy birthday to my old man, Ricardo. I'm sure he's having a few cold ones today, as is everybody, being the extra long weekend. We had Canada Day, we had Independence Day, but Pilsy, another holiday is wrapping up, and that's Sens Dev Camp.
Yeah, Sens Dev Camp, probably the biggest holiday in the summer, Ross. So really, we should have led with that. But yes, happy birthday to your old man. Dev Camp is a lot of fun for people that get to go. You get to see kind of the size and the raw skill of all these prospects. And shout out Kevin Lee. We've been watching his updates as he's boots on the ground there. And it seems like, Ross, so far, Dorian Donovan is this year's highlight of Dev Camp.
And what's cool about that is he's turning pro. So the Belleville Sens, who've lost some veterans on the left side, Jacob Larson, Dylan Hetherington, looking for found new opportunities. Now they did replace them with a few vets. You think of Roos as well as a couple other guys back there. But I think there's a serious opportunity for Donovan to step in as a top 4 AHL guy if he can show that he's able to keep up with the pace at camp. Now, if there's a guy who's going to be dialed in all offseason, probably the one whose dad runs the player development for the Ottawa Senators. But I also think that we've seen this development curve through junior as well. He was an awesome defenseman, a very sought-after guy, and the trade market in the OHL, goes to Saginaw and wins the Memorial Cup. So this is a guy who's been to 2 Memorial Cups, the first one with Steve Staios' Hamilton Bulldogs, and it's great to see because he's filled out. He's a 6'3", big body, can skate, and he's looking like he could be a 5th-round steal. He was taken 2 years ago now in the draft. So the reports from him have been great. Everybody is enamored with Carter Yakimchuk's hands. No surprise, based off of his junior highlight reel. To me, the big question is, will that translate once he gets to the NHL? But my goodness, for now, it is going to be a treat to watch. He had a couple behind the back passes. You can tell that this is something that he works very hard on, to be slick with his hands. You don't often see that from a 6'3" defenseman.
Yeah, honestly, Ross, that's going to be so exciting now that we know he's a Sens prospect. Watching him in Calgary just dangling through everyone is going to be an absolute blast, and hopefully he can round out the rest of his game defensively too.
And nobody's been hurt by Gabriel Eliasson either yet.
That's honestly the best news coming through this, because for a guy whose scouting report has a lust for violence and plays a mean game at all times, I'm glad that there's been no friendly fire and no unfortunate incidents here.
Hey, we're hearing a lot too up front. We're just kind of ripping through the names, the standout names that we're hearing a lot about. Again, we couldn't make it to Dev Camp this year. We did the draft instead. No regrets about that. But last year, we had a great time at Sens Dev Camp. Got to sit down with a lot of members of the organization, including a ton of the prospects. And Stephen Halliday, for my money, probably the best forward. And I'd imagine he's the best forward out there right now. A complete disher when he got to pro hockey. And this battle for fourth line center is going to be a ton of fun at training camp, especially you look at Jan Jenik coming in yesterday in the trade for Igor Sokolov, or 2 days ago. We discussed yesterday on the show. And then you've got your up-and-comers, your Zach Ostapchuks, your Stephen Hallidays. Or are the Senators going to continue looking to add to their roster? Right now, they have $3.6 million in cap space, but they do have a couple spots on the roster to fill. So that's kind of the theme of today's show, is who should be targeting for those spots. And not only those spots, but one guy in particular is Rutger McGroarty, the Jets' 14th overall pick in the 2022 draft. And his trajectory has been on an upward trend. It's not like we're looking at a prospect who's fallen out of favor. This isn't a Kyle Turris situation where he turned pro and just couldn't get it rolling, not getting opportunities in a scoring role on a bad team. No, Rutger McGroarty wants to play in the National Hockey League from his camp. Now, we are starting to hear some whispers out of the Jets camp saying, hey, they're doing some pretty good messaging over there with the agent. They're blaming it 100% on the organization, where it's like, this is a player that's not a top 3 pick, not a top 5 pick, not even a top 10 pick, and he's going to come in here and dictate when he's ready. Like, they've got Brad Lambert, who paid his dues in the AHL last year already in the same draft. So I get the organization being like, hey, you come in and earn a spot, you'll play in the NHL, but we're not just going to hand it to you on a silver platter. This isn't your team. We're not giving you a letter for game one. Come in here and earn it. And he said, no, I'm actually going to go play somewhere else. Now, it is worth noting too, Pilsy, that McGroarty is best friends with Cutter Gauthier, who just pulled this same maneuver last year with the Philadelphia Flyers. The difference is that the Flyers were able to keep it under wraps and were able to make the trade without everybody knowing that he wanted out. So they got a good return. Jamie Drysdale and a second. What do you think the return's going to be for McGroarty? Because you think if people were matching the price that the Jets have put up, he would have been gone by the draft.
I think it starts with a first-round pick, Ross. I think that's the base of a Rutger McGroarty trade. And then there's going to be competition to acquire this guy, right? So I think it's going to be a first plus a high-end prospect. Like, to put it in Sens terms, you're probably looking at a 2025 first-round pick plus a Roby Yarventi, a Zach Ostapchuk, somewhere in those lines, right? And it's interesting, Ross, you talk about the difference between Brad Lambert and Rutger McGroarty in the Winnipeg system. Brad Lambert has 99 Liga games under his belt too. And he wasn't, the carpet wasn't rolled out for him just to walk into the NHL. Rutger McGroarty has only played college hockey. Now, mind you, he's dominating in college hockey. That needs to be said. Last year with the University of Michigan, in 36 games, he had 16 goals, 36 assists, good for 52 points. So certainly this is a guy that is held in high regard, and he deserves some respect, and captained the U.S. World Junior team too. So I kind of get where he's coming from, but also, Ross, as a prospect, sometimes you just got to pay your dues, and sometimes it's for the best. Like, obviously you want to hop into the NHL, but nothing wrong with spending a season in the AHL with the Manitoba Moose. Now, if you're a guy like McGroarty and you're like, I can either play in the AHL for the Manitoba Moose, or I can go back and have success in college, I kind of see where he's at there. And he's probably looking at what happened to Cole Perfetti, being like, okay, I don't really want that to be the case for me. Cole Perfetti was dominating and still a healthy scratch. And the only time he would get to play, and Ross, you can touch on this more than I can, is when there's injuries. And then when he would play, he would still do well, and they would still take him out as soon as a veteran was healthy. So I can kind of see the frustration from McGroarty's camp being like, we don't want that to happen to us.
Well, look, the Jets have had a first-round pick almost every year, and we are going to get to the thesis of this. Should the Senators target McGroarty? But the only Winnipeg Jets first-round picks, and I'm including Mark Scheifele, 6th overall, the first pick in franchise history, the only guys who didn't play in the AHL, Jacob Trouba and Nikolai Ehlers. That's it.
Yeah.
Kyle Connor played in the AHL. You've got all these guys over the years, and that's just how they do things here. So Rutger McGroarty didn't want to be a part of that, but should the Ottawa Senators be interested? You just named the price. Let's throw a guy like Tyler Clevin or Matt Sogard. Like, it's going to be one of your top 5 prospects. Yakimchuk's off limits. There's no way that I would do a trade involving him. Heck, they took him 7 picks above where McGroarty was taken 2 years ago, 14th overall. However, if you're telling me that Ottawa's first-round pick next year and Roby Järventie gets it done, I pull the trigger on that trade. Do you?
Yeah, I think I do as well, Ross. Like, McGroarty's a really good player.
Of course, this is dependent on McGroarty being comfortable signing with the Senators.
And that's where I get a little cautious, Ross. You see a guy pull this move with the team that drafted him, and you get a little nervous that you're going to have an Adam Fox situation on your hands where then you trade for him, and he says, "Nah, I don't want to play for you either. Like, I want to make my own decision here."
He wants to go play in Nebraska? Good luck.
yeah, it's probably not a lot of NHL opportunity in Nebraska. But it's not so much that, Ross. It's more just him being in a situation where him and his agent feel like they can dictate the terms. Yep. And then you've given away good capital for a chance at signing a really good player. Now, I'm not suggesting that that is what he's going to do. I'm just saying it would make me a little bit nervous if I was a team pushing a lot of assets into acquiring him.
Me too. And I understand the kind of sense in the room. Like, if this guy walks into the room on day one and that's the narrative around him, imagine being a vet on the team and being like, buddy, you think or
Ross, like one of those players that we talk about that spent 2 seasons in the AHL and hasn't got their chance. And
like
it's
Crookshank.
Yeah,
imagine
exactly.
Crooker walking into the room.
100%. Crooker's like, get in line, buddy. Pay your dues in Belleville and let's see how it goes from there. So that's where it's interesting, but it cannot be overstated how good of a player Rutger McGroarty is. Like, Ross, I was looking at our 2022 NHL draft prospect profiles.
He was my number 1 guy at 7th overall.
I had him at 5 stars. We both loved him. This is a really good player. I even put in my notes, this feels like a Sens type guy. So,
and he's gotten better since. So
definitely,
here's my response to the fans who are the citizens out there who are watching this and saying, Rutger McGroarty, are you guys kidding me? That's a guy who was drafted years ago. We need prospects in the pool. We need draft prospects. Look, I get it. The Sens prospect pool isn't the deepest right now. However, wouldn't this be kind of backfilling your prospect pool? This isn't a 22, 23, 24-year-old. He was in the World Juniors this year. Yeah. You are basically getting back the first-round pick that you gave up for Alex DeBrincat. Now, I know you're giving up the 2025 first, but if we're talking about the Senators' competitive window and how it's just kind of opening and, we don't have prospects now, we're going to be screwed in a couple of years. Well, now you're backfilling that and you've added a prospect 20th overall. And I'll go and say it. As though I said Yakimchuk to me is off limits. If McGroarty was in the prospect pool, he's the number 1 prospect for the Ottawa Senators above Carter Yakimchuk.
That's an interesting debate, Ross. I think it's close. But I would probably side with you on that one as well. And then, Ross, not only are you building to the prospect pool,
go ahead.
You're getting a guy that should be able to play in the NHL on an ELC. And that is
for all 3 years.
Exactly.
Because he wasn't able to get what he wanted, which was burning a year off last year. So that's a benefit to whatever team gets him. You're getting 3 years of entry level. And Rutger McGroarty this past season had 52 points in 36 games in the NCAA. And that included 1 game with 14 shots on goal, another with 9, another with 7, 6. This guy is an offensive weapon. So let us know in the comments, should the Ottawa Senators target Rutger McGroarty? Could this be a Kyle Turris situation where you get a guy out of an uncomfortable situation for him, bring him into your own, and you look at the U.S. connections on Ottawa, you think that he's probably a huge Brady Tkachuk fan, and you got to think that, the other guys, he would have known the
Did he play the program with any of these guys?
Just missed Jake Sanderson by a year, I believe, but very close. However, that to say, Rutger McGroarty is the biggest trade chip out on the market, bar none right now, to me, after the first week of free agency where we saw so much movement. But McGroarty still available, did not attend Jets development camp. We'll see what's next for Rutger McGroarty. We'll see what's next for a bunch of veterans as well. The UFA market may have thinned out, but there are still plenty of good options available. Before we get to that, though, Pilsy, what is your best offer for Rutger McGroarty? What is this saying? If you guys don't accept this deal, we're walking away.
Well, it certainly starts with 2025 first, and then the Sens are going to have to give up the 2026 first for the Dadonov trade, which I think is probably most likely anyways. I would start at the 2025 first and Roby Yarventi. I'm not sure how far up I'm willing to go. Like, I don't
I
think
would
I'd
go
throw
with the
Clevin in
Stapchuk.
that deal.
I would throw a Stapchuk in that deal. That would be my final offer.
Yeah, I think a Stapchuk is probably the top of where I go. Or, I mean, honestly, I would throw probably both those guys in there, Yarventi and a Stapchuk and the first, because the value of having a guy like McGroarty on that ELC for 3 years it's so huge. It's so huge, and this is such a good player. And Yarventi, that's a guy that is still a lot of runway, so the Jets would love to have him. And then a Stapchuk, that's a guy that also would look great in the Winnipeg Jets system. So I think something like that could definitely get this done. But Ross, there's going to be competition for acquiring him. So that asking price is probably going to go higher.
But if it would have been met, then he would have been traded by now.
I don't necessarily know if that's true, Ross, because I think maybe the Jets want a bidding war. The Jets are in no rush to do anything.
No, true. Hey, interesting how this one will play out. More Locked On Senators on the other side. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, that's what brings home the winning trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. It's that simple. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not burning cash. With all the parts you need and at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that W. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. Check it out today, guys. eBay Motors.
All right, Pillsy. We are just about 1 work week in to free agency, and we have seen so many moves. July 1st, the first $1 billion day in the NHL's history, and they've kind of rolled into the rest of the week. Day 2, there were 42 signings, and then 16, and then 5 yesterday. Only 1 league minimum contract today. So that's why we're looking at the bargain bin on Locked On Senators. Because you look, and let's pull up. I feel like at this time of year, it's important to continuously pull up the Ottawa Senators depth chart as it changes almost daily. But I think the Senators are in a pretty good spot right now with what they've added at the free agency period. You look at just 1 RFA left to sign at the NHL level. It's Jan Jenik, the player acquired from the Igor Sokolov trade. So he's only probably had 1 or 2 conversations with the Senators. We'll see what happens next.
I think Staios will get that done, Ross.
I think so too. But as we look up front here, and by the way, David Perron, great interview. I already begrudgingly am starting to like him. We'll see how that relationship blossoms over the course of the next 2 years. However, he did say he prefers the right side, but is open to playing both wings. So to me, if you flip this and you put Giroux, Batherson, and Perron, that's a pretty strong 1-2-3 down the right side. Then you've kind of got your left side as more utility pieces with Michael Amadio and Ridley Gregg and Noah Gregor, who I talked to Mike DiStefano from Locked On Leafs. He said that Noah Gregor played majority on the wing in Toronto. Okay. We were having that discussion yesterday. Played a little center when Kampf was the third line center, and then they brought up Pontus Holmberg to play down the middle, and he moved right back to the wing. So I think we're looking at Noah Gregor as a winger for next season. But based on this lineup, we've targeted a few players that could upgrade either the fourth line or on the back end. And just to remind everybody, here's what the back end looks like right now for the Ottawa Senators. A little heavy on the left side, but still some talent spread out across the organization. We're kind of doing the opposite of the Guy Boucher years, where the right side was your puck movers, the left side was the lock up in the neutral zone, and now we flipped it, where the right side is your stay-at-home defenseman with Zub and Jensen, and to a lesser extent JBD, and the left side is your puck movers with Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot holding down the top four. All that said, our best remaining targets, and there are quite a few, where do you want to start? Because I guess we already covered the one player that was available via trade, and that's Rutger McGroarty. But beyond that, looking at the free agent market, who stands out to you?
Well, let's keep with the forwards here, Ross, and we'll work our way to the defense. Look, if the Ottawa Senators rolled into next season with the depth chart that we just showed, I think I would be comfortable with that, Ross. How about you?
I need one more defenseman.
No, sorry, I mean for the forwards.
Yes. I would be comfortable, but I wouldn't be upset if they tried to upgrade on a fourth line wing. I think that Gregor, McEwen, those types of players should have to battle every day to stay in the lineup.
Yeah, I agree. And there should be some guys of similar kind of roles that they're battling with. So I'm with you. I think they just need to maybe get one more guy that can be on that fourth line. So I've already mentioned it, but I'll say it again. Sammy Blais is a guy I really like. I'd like to dial back my offensive upside comments. So, Ross, you made a good point. Having a multiple 0-goal seasons probably isn't that great. But he did pop off that 1 year when he got traded.
He plays hard, too.
He plays hard. He gets a lot of hits. This is someone that you could get on a league minimum deal for 1 year, I believe. He's a guy that could play in the AHL, if he needed. And he just provides a little more oomph than a Zach McEwen would in a similar type role. Now, if you want to go for a much more veteran approach than either a Blais or a McEwen, Ross, a guy we circled, I don't really know if this is realistic, and I'm surprised he didn't return to his team already. But a Cal Clutterbuck would be a great option as well, in my opinion. He finished 5th in the league in hits with 273. He played all 82 games last season with the New York Islanders, and he averaged about 12 minutes a night. So it's not like he's just out there quick, get a hit and run back to the bench. He's been relied upon for a little more minutes, and he put up some decent points too, 19 points last season. So that'd be a nice veteran guy, to also a culture guy as well, as he was an assistant captain on the New York Islanders for a long time.
Yeah, 9 seasons. He's worn an A on the island, and he's got a career that's spanned. He's got to be close, if not, over 1,000 games in his career, 1,064. However, Clutterbuck will be 37 at the time that next year begins. So it does leave a little bit of time for pause, but the way that he plays is certainly how Ottawa is trying to construct their bottom six. The only other forward that we threw here in the mix is Nick Cousins, one of the guys you absolutely hate to play against. But when he's on your team, and in the Senators situation, I know, look, he didn't play every game in the playoffs, just 12 of them. He was sitting for a while. They lost the last 3 games that they played, including the one in the Stanley Cup Finals that he played. He didn't play a whole lot, but at the same time, you look at what kind of pesky ratness he can bring. Like, imagine in any part of a game, not that these 3 would be on a line together, but Cousins, Greg, and Perron out there at the same time. Like,
it'd be nuts. And that's the type of guy, Ross, that you love to hate him. And I think he would be an interesting addition. Like, he's up there in top 5 rats in the league.
Yeah, and he's from Belleville too. So look, if it doesn't work out in Ottawa, he gets to go play at CAA Arena in front of his home crowd. But no, he's going to be 31 at the time of next season. He's been a bit of a suitcase around the National Hockey League, from Philadelphia to Arizona to Montreal to Vegas to Nashville to Florida. But I think him on a 1 year under $1 million contract, if you can get him there, would be very much an upgrade on what Ottawa's got on that fourth line. I think I'd put him in Noah Gregor's spot right away, and that all of a sudden, boom, everything looks a little bit deeper up front. What about the back end? Because right now, The bottom pair is Tyler Kleven in pencil. We don't give people jobs here unless maybe you're Rutger McGroarty. And then on the right side, Jacob Bernard Docker, and then Travis Hamonic sitting as the 7th defenseman, the extra right now. Do the Senators need to upgrade their blue line? Well, coming up next, we've got some names that they could use to do just that. That's all next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, Pilsy, the roster reconstruction continues. We've already had a ton of movement for the Ottawa Senators, said goodbye to some longer-term players with the organization, and in comes the fresh blood. But are they done? The Ottawa Senators blue line right now, I'd say it's kind of even to last year. The only thing they really did was take out Chicker and put in Nick Jensen. Probably worse on paper, but maybe a bit better of a fit, getting a real defensive defenseman in there to mop up some mistakes. But what is your answer to the question? Should they continue to improve before opening night?
Yeah, I think they should try to get one more veteran defenseman, particularly on the right side, Ross. It's funny, we talk about the Ottawa Senators drafting left shot defensemen and love big left shot defensemen, but actually the surplus in the NHL is on the right side now. You've got Travis Hamonic as kind of the 7th D, but still, I think they should look for, honestly, Ross, my main concern is finding a partner for Tyler Kleven. I know we got him in pencil, but I think he's going to win that bottom pair left D job out of camp. I think the team thinks he's ready. He believes he's ready. He put his time in Belleville. He looked great and developing last season.
He looked good in those 2 games we saw live at the end of the year in Winnipeg and in Minnesota. I thought he was an everyday type defenseman. He plays with his head up, and he's moving the puck better than I had even anticipated. You know what you're going to get with him with the physicality, even though we haven't seen a K-train train track hit yet in the NHL, but I think he's done well at defending in his own zone. And I think his play with the puck has improved. So I'm with you. I think he's going to make the team as well.
Yeah, I think really you just want to find a more veteran puck-moving guy so that Kleven isn't relied upon to be the puck mover on a pair. I think that'd be a little bit too much responsibility for his skill set starting out. So we're looking at a couple right-hand D. I mentioned him before, so I'll emphasize again. I think Shattenkirk is probably the guy you're looking at here. Now, he's bounced around a little bit too. His career really changed, Ross, after that trade from the St. Louis Blues. I believe it was to the Rangers. Just looking at it here. Oh, no, to the Capitals. Yeah, he went to the Capitals quickly, and then he went to the Rangers, and that he started slowing down. But this is a guy that's going to give you probably mid-20s in points. Last year with the Bruins, 61 games, 6 goals, 18 assists, good for 24 points. And that's a guy that I still think on a third pair could provide a lot of value. And I think you could get him for under $2 million. And that's another good veteran defenseman who has a bunch of playoff experience. So that would be my top target as far as defenseman UFAs go, Ross.
Yeah, and I understand that. He's he's closing in rather on 1,000 games. So he's another veteran who's just been a stabilizing figure on some good teams. And I think that culture and obviously a familiarity with Linus Ullmark isn't the worst thing either, bringing in his former teammate. So I think that would be somewhere I would look. Now, is he willing to come to Canada? Is he willing to come to Ottawa? Both being precursors to saying, is he willing to play for cheap? Because the Ottawa Senators cannot invest more than the slight overpayment to Travis Hamonic, making 1.1. Like the defenseman they bring in,
I think under $2 million.
Yes, definitely under $2 million. I would say even under 1.5. So maybe some of these defensemen are going to price themselves out of Ottawa, or maybe they just don't want to come. That's fine. However, my top target is Justin Schultz. Now, funny enough, if you look, and he was a deep minus last year on an underperforming Seattle Kraken team. But if you look historically, he's good year, bad year, good year, bad year, good year, bad year when it comes to the plus minus. And therefore, we are heading into a good year. But all jokes aside, I think he's a guy that could move the puck. He could also, in a pinch, play on your second power play unit. If there are injuries, whatever the case may be, he's got experience. He's 33, 34 years old. and he brings just a bit more poise on the back end. So I think Justin Schultz would be a solid third pair defenseman to pair alongside a rookie.
And the nice thing about Schultz, Ross, is he could jump up into that top 4 for a little bit if you have injuries as well, in my opinion. So definitely a good player to have. I just think he's going to price himself out a little more than Shattenkirk might.
Yes, I agree with that. And he's also a little bit younger than Shattenkirk as well. It's actually his birthday tomorrow. So he'll be 34 years old tomorrow. And he's coming off a 2-year contract that paid him $3 million per season. But as the market thins out, right, guys are trying to find opportunities. I would at least call on Justin Schultz to see. However, this is maybe a 1B for me. I think I'm pretty split because I know Tyson Barrie has been a malaligned player based on the salary that he's been making basically since he got to Toronto. Shocker. Going to Toronto is going to get people talking and picking your game apart. But if you look at the offense, man, this guy's 1 year removed from a 55-point season. Like, I don't think he's going to get the opportunity to even get there this upcoming season wherever he plays. And last year was obviously a step back offensively. He had 15 points, but only in 41 games. So, I mean, you're still on pace for 30 points. What would that have been? Third on the Senators behind Sanderson and Chychrun?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be close. So I think if you could potentially add him into a bottom pair role, you're looking at another guy where it's like a culture guy, a guy who's played on good teams before and gone on deep playoff runs. And I think that having a veteran stabilizing presence who can still play, with all due respect to Hamonic, is going to be important for the Senators' depth, because you never just use 6 or 7 defensemen. You're going to need 8 or 9. And I can't live in a world where, again, no disrespect, but where Max Gannett and another Belleville guy are playing within a month of the season. So they have to add someone for me to be able to stack backwards in case injuries do arise, which we know in hockey happen more often than not. So I've got Tyson Barrie and Justin Schultz slightly ahead of Kevin Shattenkirk, but any of those 3 right shot defensemen would be great additions for this team.
Now, Ross, do you think maybe we should actually be targeting a bottom pair left shot defenseman here to give Clevin a little bit of competition? And if it doesn't work out, since the Sens are so stacked on, or I shouldn't say stacked, have a surplus on the right side?
No, that doesn't bother me as much.
No,
I get what you're saying, though. We just lived in a world where they had 4 left shot defensemen.
Yeah.
And now we're just going to flip it. But
yeah. But I mean,
yeah.
You'd rather have more righties than lefties. That's just something I was pondering there, or
Definitely.
maybe a guy that can actually play both sides. I mean, I know they let Eric Branstrom go. I mean, a more veteran guy, but it's going to be interesting to see how this decor shakes out, because I think a lot of fans and I think the management group, they understood, yes, the goaltending needed to be better, but a lot of that came from downfalls defensively with the decor last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how they ultimately decide to polish that up coming into next season.
And we just put out this list on Twitter at Sens Central, and a lot of the comments are saying remove Tyson Barrie. And I would just caution that. I don't think defensively he's that great, but I just think if you're able to get him at a reasonable price, he just came off a contract making $4.5 million. Like, he's not making even close to that, but he's also made his money. So he's probably going to go to a team that's maybe closer to competing. So I don't think we have to worry about Tyson Barrie coming to Ottawa, though I do think his game could complement Tyler Clevin on the back end. And our guy Eric writing in saying, Nick Cousins, David Perron, Ridley Gregg, and Brady Tkachuk, come get some to the rest of the NHL. And that would certainly fit the mold that the Senators are trying to build, being a team that you do not want to play against. Sammy Blais, for me, just a quick note on him. He's a guy, to me, either PTO or you bring in. But again, I would love the extra competition for the Ottawa Senators at training camp. I do not want to live in a world like last year where, again, I feel like I'm going to continue to say this because none of it's personal. We've gotten to see these guys play hockey for a long time. But I don't want Parker Kelly and Mark Kaslik being guaranteed NHL spots going into training camp, right? Like, I don't think that the Gregors of the world, and I know McEwen's got 2 years left on his deal that it's at league minimum, though. But like these players should have to fight every single day in training camp to make the opening night roster. They should not be gifted these opportunities.
And I think we're going to see that, Ross, because what happens when you've got the same management, same coaching staff in one place for a long time, you start getting loyalty to players and you feel like, I don't want to say like you owe them something, but like you back them up and you put your reputation behind them. So you want to continue to give them those chances. And it felt like some of those guys were DJ Smith guys, were Pierre Dorion guys. Well, there's none of that this year, right? Like none of these guys are anyone's guys, really, as far as Steve Staios and Travis Green go. So I don't think there's going to be any warm, comfy spots on anywhere on this roster. Like obviously top 6 guys aren't battling for an NHL spot, but they're battling for a top power play to play beside Tim Stützle or to play top penalty kill or second line or left wing versus right wing, whatever the case may be. I think it's a clean slate as far as this team and roster configuration goes.
And we're looking at all these players, McGroarty aside, as one-year deals. I don't think the Senators should be getting into any sort of term with any of these remaining UFAs.
Agreed.
I think it was important that with Amadio, it was 3 years. With Perron, it was 2 years. You're really going to see over the course of the next half decade exactly what Steve Staios wants this team to look like. And I think that allowing the flexibility this time of year isn't always easy. A lot of the agents are able to get tons of term. So I appreciate that Steve Staios was able to hold out and not give up term. So why stop now? These would all be one-year options on the back end for the Ottawa Senators. But as you can see, the top guys are all off the board. A lot of them got paid. I still can't believe what Chandler Stevenson got paid from Seattle. He was a top target for me beforehand, right? And yeah, the term more so, and the total value of the money. So I think that you're looking at silly season having come and gone, and now it's time to go to the thrift store and find that beautiful, I can't believe I got it here type item.
Yeah, we're gonna pop some tags in the thrift store, Ross.
I got one more question for you on this, and okay. I want to carry it from there for you. What do you think is more likely, the Senators signing another free agent or making another trade?
Free agent, I think for sure.
Okay.
I believe, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Ross, but I believe really the only trade chip left in this organization is JBD.
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, you could look at moving that. We mentioned Yarventi's name, where it's like he was sick at the start of last season, but when you play at the same AHL team as a prospect for 4-5 years, I know he was the youngest player at the start of it, but that's got to weigh on you, man. You gotta wonder, like, when is it my turn? And I know he had a couple NHL games, 4 if I'm not mistaken.
Didn't go great for him though.
I'm curious. He was sick though in the AHL. Would he have 18 points in 21 games before the injury?
Oh yeah, no one's doubting his AHL ability. I don't.
Right.
Think. Yeah.
So I'm just curious if they look to take a prospect from the old regime and turn it into something they like a bit better.
I mean, we saw that with Sokolov, right? So that's definitely a possibility.
What were you going to go with?
I almost wish you didn't call back to this, Ross, because it saddens me, but Vladimir Tarasenko signing with the Detroit Red Wings, that hurts.
Oh, man. It's almost like a Freaky Friday where Ottawa gets David Perron and they get Vladimir Tarasenko. He just stopped by to get a cup in the interim.
Yeah, I would have preferred Tarasenko, especially 2 years, 4.75 is a very nice deal for Vladdy, but I just wish it wasn't the same division. Like Vladimir Tarasenko was one of those guys that I feel like the hype didn't get where it should have. I was so excited about that. I thought he was really good when he was in Ottawa, and it's unfortunate that it ended the way it did, him going to Florida for an underwhelming return, but he flexed his leverage as a player with his no trade clause list, and he was able to go where he wanted to, and it worked out pretty well for him. His family was already there, and he won a Stanley Cup, his second. So I would have liked for him to go anywhere out of the division. So it's unfortunate that we got this Detroit Red Wings team is going to have DeBrincat and Tarasenko here. But Ross, I'm not too worried about what the Wings got going on in net.
No. I'm not a Billy
Husso
Husso
does
guy.
that team need?
Well, they're playing the old, hey, one day Sebastian Cossa will be ready. One day.
But behind Talbot,
Husso?
Lyon, Campbell, and
Yeah, and
Costa
they even
and Augustine there. Like, oh my!
Well, they even
God.
traded for a
Who's
young goalie from was it San Jose? They got Gage Alexander recently too. Now, I'm not saying he's ready, from Anaheim rather. But yeah, they got goalies. They got
Where are all these
goalies.
guys gonna play? Like, it's crazy to me that they did this.
Only one net, boys. Can't relate though. We got our guy. We got a starter.
That's the thing. Yeah, last year I would not be chirping anyone else's goaltending situation, but they got 6 goalies, none of them former Vezina winners.
No. Although Anthony Stewart with Sportsnet did predict that Jack Campbell was going to win the Vezina the year he got sent down. Or at the start of this past season, he's like, "Yeah, my Vezina pick from the Edmonton Oilers, Jack Campbell."
Huh.
Oops. We got some bad takes.
Yeah,
too.
I was gonna say we don't need to take a look at our bad takes. Just to point it out myself here, I'm pretty sure one of my hot takes was Forsberg and Corpusalo winning the Jennings.
No way. No, it wasn't. Dude,
No,
you did say that Corpusalo was gonna like double his career high in shutouts, which was like 2.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think he got a single one.
No. I can't.
I don't think so.
Never go to
I think
Corpusalo's
Forsberg had
page.
the 2.
Yeah, no shutouts. He has 4 shutouts in 250 NHL starts.
Nuts.
That is actually almost impressive. Like, let's compare that to let's just pick a name out of a hat. How about Linus Ullmark?
Oh, yep. That's a good random name to choose.
Linus Ullmark has 8 shutouts in 238 games, so double the shutouts in 12 less games. I actually thought it would be a couple more than that, but
So did I, yeah.
There you go. Man, Ullmark looking at his stats is way more fun than looking at Corpusalo's. All right, Pillsy, any final thoughts on today's show?
Nope, that was it for me. That's it.
No so you didn't want to save your final thought for what you brought up beforehand?
I emptied out the clip a little early there.
We appreciate everybody for liking, commenting, listening, watching the show. It goes a long way to helping us. Make sure to be a friend, tell a friend, steal your family members' phones, steal your partner's phones, and make sure to subscribe to Locked On Senators. We are your team every day, running 5 days a week, all through July. And wow, we are gaining traction on one of the best interview seasons that we've done yet. That's all to look forward to on Locked On Senators. Have a great weekend, everyone. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.